Good evening. My name is Jeru Bande. I'm the director of the East County Regional Office, Montgomery County Government. Welcome to the African Caribbean Diaspora FY27 Operating Budget Community Conversation here at the Montgomery College East County Education Center. A special welcome to all our community leaders representing those populations, and a special welcome to our Chief Administrative Officer, Rich Madaleno, who will be leading our conversation. He's really not a newcomer. He probably knows East County better than many of us in here. So please be ready for his presentation. So welcome, Mr. Madaleno. The special welcome also goes to a number of our county department representatives, starting with Sean Ellis, the Director of the Office of Community Partnerships. James Bridges, Director of the Health and Human Services. And we have Darcel Ingham, the Director of Public Libraries. And two representatives, the administration, the fire and rescue. We have Pete Dominic Depozo, if I pronounce it right, please forgive me, and Mr. Pete Peringer. Thank you. Did I miss any department head, department representatives? Thank you. The Montgomery County is holding these public meetings to give residents the opportunities to have input in the budget development process in Montgomery County. It is very important for the county executive and our chief administrative officer to make sure all the special populations have the opportunity to be part of that process. This event here this evening is designed very specifically for the African, Caribbean, and the diaspora communities. This is one of over a dozen such public meetings that gives the opportunities to different groups, bringing in different diverse input into the process. The agenda for this evening is simple and straightforward. I will be actually going through a lot of the conversations that some of you had experienced in previous 2 or 3 public meetings. We will, after the introductions, we will have an overview, a very quick overview of the operating budget basics, and then provide feedback and questions to the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Madaleno, and then he will make closing remarks. Now, in terms of this public forum, as I indicated, this is one of many such opportunities provided by the county executive to our communities. And we would like to again thank you, for we believe that your voice matters. You could also, besides participating in this process, you have a number of other opportunities to have input in this process. The East County Citizens Advisory Board conducts, supports or sponsors similar events. The next one will be October 6th at 7 p.m. at the White Oak Community Rec Center, and we have some flyers in the back out there. And then you also will have another opportunity after the county executive submits his budget to the county council to participate in those public hearing events. So that's another opportunity. Some of you are currently on either a board, a committee, or a commission. You have an opportunity to also chime in through those channels. But you could also participate by writing emails, text to our county officials, county executive, county council, and the school board for the budget relating to education. There's a number of other public meetings. And now it is my distinct honor to invite to the podium my boss, and our friend in East County, in all other regions, Montgomery County, CAO, Rich Madaleno. Thank you. Thank you.
So, it's so nice to see you. Rich Madaleno, I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of the county government. What does that mean? I am like the Vice County Executive, all right? I'm the second person in command, the top appointed official in the county. I want to point out some of the people. Drew went through them very quickly, but I want to make sure you know who's here. If you have any questions. Our fabulous, relatively new library director, Darcel Graham. So Dr. James Bridgers, who's the director of the Department of Health and Human Services. So I think roughly half the county works for Dr. Bridgers. So even if you don't, you do. So Dr. Bridgers. And then we have Sean Ellis, who was introduced. Sean is our director of the Office of Community Partnerships. And standing next to him in the back, the person you definitely, if you are here for a budget forum, you definitely want to know Jennifer Bryant, the director of the Office of Management and Budget. Jenny, keep waving, keep waving. So truly, you want something in the budget, go be nice to her in the back of the room. So, and then we have from the Office of Community Partnerships, two people that you definitely want to know. Rodrigue Vital, who is the liaison, the community liaison for our Caribbean community. Frederick Hawkins, who is our liaison for the African American community. So, there are tables in the back with people from various departments or offices within the Department of Health and Human Services, especially the African American Health Program is right there. We've got people from the Healthy Babies Program. I'm not even going to get it all right. Dr. Bridgers is going to lecture me in the morning, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning when we have a call. James, why don't you shout out who's here so that people know?
They're all here. We have DOT is here as well. A lot of folks in the house.
I was going to get to the other departments. I was hoping you would just do HHS. So yes, the Montgomery County Department of Transportation is here. Several people from the amazing Department, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service, our Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And this would not be possible without the amazing work of the Montgomery County Office of Public Information. And there are many people here from the Office of Public Information. So thank you all very much. They will be here to answer questions. If you get bored during my presentation and you want to wander back there, speak quietly. I won't take it too personally. So tonight we are here to talk about overall the county budget. But when you think about our budget, we have two different budgets. And this is a year that the county executive will be proposing both budgets new. First, the operating budget. What does that pay for? General operations, everyday services. So when you talk about the fire department, the salaries for the firefighters, the benefits for the firefighters, the nurses in the school health program, our trash collection, all the library books and librarians, all of that flows through the operating budget. The capital budget pays for buildings and things that are going to last longer. Every other year, county executive proposes a 6-year capital budget. So this is one of those years. On January 15th, he will be proposing a capital budget. It is in the billions of dollars because it comes from borrowing money for 6 years. It comes from a variety of tax sources for 6 years. So, Veronica, how much money is in the capital budget? $5.8 billion. will flow through the capital budget. Federal funds, state funds, but everything to do from building new schools to buying fire trucks to building libraries to fixing roads, bridges. We maintain 5,200 miles of roads in Montgomery County. So it's got to do all of those things of a longer term nature. So 2 different budgets, happy to answer questions about both. One is submitted in January. The capital budget comes in on January 15th. The operating budget must be submitted to the county council by the county executive on March 15th. March 15th is Saturday, I think, this year, so it'll be the Monday after March 15th. So as Drew mentioned, then there are budget hearings before the county council. So you can come, you can hopefully show up and say, God, Mark Elrich is a great guy. He proposed everything we wanted. Please fund the budget. Or you can say what he missed or what you don't like. The county council has the authority to make changes, whichever they want, up, down to the budget, but they have to pass the budget by the Thursday but before Memorial Day. So that's your last chance. They will have hearings through April mainly, work sessions in May, and then they have to pass the budget by the Thursday before Memorial Day. I am pleased to say we've been joined by the district council member who represents the East County, Kristen Mink, who is right here. So in the rare chance you're not happy with what Mark Elrich proposes, Kristen is who you want to go to, or one of the 10 other county council members who have the honor of representing our fantastic county. So a little bit about who we are as a county. We are proud to be the most ethnically diverse jurisdiction in the country, if not number one, up there, with actually having an enormous range of people, from almost 48% white, a little less than 19% black or African American, almost 22% Hispanic, 16% Asian, 2 or more races, and everybody else. So quite a big, I didn't think my voice sounded like that. That's very interesting. So a very interesting group, almost 1.1 million people. The county executive always points out that in 1970, to see the change in a little more than 50 years, in 1970, our community was 95% white, 4.5% black, and 0.5% everything else. So in a relatively short period of time, our county has changed, and at the same time, as a result of that change, grown more diverse and more fantastically wealthy. Really, over the last 50 years, it's amazing. We have become ethnically diverse and economically quite diverse. Linguistically, 43.4% of residents speak a language other than English, maybe not as a primary language, but they are at least bilingual, with Spanish being the most common language. 18% of our population speaks Spanish, and then you can see the other languages going down between Chinese, Amharic, French, Korean, and Vietnamese. And then 14.5 with more than 100 other languages from around the world. So linguistically, a diverse and talented population. So the county executive has been committed, and I'm sure Dr. Bridgers can tell you, because he has been the person who has been responsible for, and I'm sure he has a love-hate relationship with this. No county executive, with the support of the council, has provided more resources to our health and human services. Mark Elrich cares deeply about health and human services, making sure everyone has, as much as possible, their needs met. He truly wears his heart on his sleeve. At the same time, that has put a lot of stress on our programs, as we have put more money into health and human services. And the interesting thing for all of you to know about Montgomery County, no other county government in the state operates a combined Department of Health and Human Services that is staffed entirely by Montgomery County employees and funded almost entirely by Montgomery County. In the mid-1990s, the county made a decision that we would take over the programs that had been operated by the state through what was then the Department of Social Services, combine it into one large county-operated Department of Health and Human Services. It gives us the ability to provide a range of care and set our own priorities. So in this way, we are much more like the District of Columbia or a state than the other counties of Maryland. If you walk into the Prince George's County Department of Social Services or the Howard County Department of Social Services, you are walking into a state agency run by state employees. We made the decision in Montgomery County that we would run our own social services. We get some state funds for it in a block grant, but other than that, we get to set our priorities and set our funding level. And certainly, Mark Elrich, as county executive, has made sure through COVID, through other challenges, that we have continued to step up and provide resources to Health and Human Services, including in a variety of initiatives, whether it's Montgomery Cares, where we are providing money directly to pay for health care services to our residents, to Care for Kids, to the Lighthouse program at the bottom, which is about helping new or even long-time county residents who are from elsewhere in the world navigating their challenges related to immigration status. The Office of Community Partnerships provides, again, a variety of services, but since Mark Elrich has become county executive, we've added a translations unit so that we can move as many of our documents into the 6 other primary languages of the county. Again, Spanish, French, Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean, and Amharic. We have an immigrant resource center, the Gilchrist Immigrant Resource Center, where we are providing resources to immigrants, to the families of immigrants. We are providing legal representation in a variety of cases to immigrants. And of course, as I introduced 2 of our community liaisons in the back, we have community liaisons that are working with the Hispanic community, the Asian community, the Middle Eastern community, the faith community, the LGBTQ community, as well as the African American, the Caribbean, and the African diaspora community. I think I've hit every one of our community liaisons.
Is there not one more for the elderly?
That's elsewhere. That is in the Department of Health and Human Services. She had asked, is there one for the elderly? That's Dr. Bridgers. So I'm joking. There is a division within HHS called the Division for Aging and Disability Services. The poor guy never gets to sleep, really. So elsewhere, the county executive's priorities have been clustered in a few areas, starting with affordable housing. As you can see, over his term in office, we have grown the amount of support that we're putting directly into building housing, affordable housing in this community. So $293 million put in for the last 3 fiscal years. These investments have supported more than 4,000 affordable housing units. That means units affordable for families earning up to 70% of area median income. The county executive is consistently asking for affordability. He's consistently pushing for rents that are us trying to figure out ways to get rents in projects that are at 30% of area median income. He's consistently pushing for 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom apartments where families can live in affordable housing, as opposed to you can have an affordable, moderately priced unit in Bethesda that's a studio apartment. It might be great for a young person or a young couple, but if you're having children, multiple children, you need to have those larger apartments, and they need to be deeply affordable. I don't know what more I can say about Health and Human Services with what we've done, but in addition, we have expanded in Montgomery County. One thing that is different, school health services is all part of our health department. It's not part of the school system. So we provide, whether it's the tech who's in the health room, nurses, nurse practitioners who are in the school-based health centers, we are counselors in the wellness centers, we are providing mental and physical health services to our students and sometimes even their families through the school system. We have been aggressive at trying to expand our services for people experiencing homelessness. We want to make sure that it's as quick as possible that someone might be homeless. We expanded the number of shelters that we have, and we continue to work hard every day to figure out what is happening with the District of Columbia, the horrible federal, it's so hard to figure out words to use, but what the federal government, the Trump administration is doing in moving homeless encampments and pushing people away. So we are trying to stay on top of that. On public safety, we have been expanding services through our fire and rescue service. I don't know if people realize this, and our fire and rescue service provides, I don't know how many calls a day, 1,000 calls a day, 800 calls a day. But the amazing thing is, it's actually a mobile healthcare system. 80% of the calls every day we're going out, we're dealing with health issues. And then the rest would be fire or rescue, accidents, that sort of stuff. So we have been trying to work very hard to figure out ways to continue to provide those integrated mobile medical services, even down to how do we figure out who is someone calling 911 often, and figure out how do we get services to them so they're not calling 911. And we're trying to divert people from having to deal with the emergency service. We have stood up a plan to, we have been putting drones up across the county to augment our police department as a way to have better outcomes for everyone involved. If there is an emergency call and we can get a drone to a site and to see what's going on, the drone technician can let the police officer know with better detail exactly what's happening. We have seen where people have called and said, I think I see someone with a gun in a park. We've been able to get the drone there to see it's someone with a cell phone in the park. And obviously when the police officer knows, all right, I'm responding to something, do I even respond? Or if I'm responding to someone, I'm walking into the situation differently if I think I've been told someone's holding a gun than when someone is acting oddly but they're holding a phone. So as you can see, it leads to better outcomes. We'll be standing up a real-time intelligence center to bring a variety of these feeds together so that we are better able to make sure our public safety and the public have better interactions when there is an emergency situation. If the fire department is responding to a car accident, if we can get a drone there to give them some idea of exactly what are they looking at, how many cars, is one actually upside down, where is it? So trying to give that real information to our first responders so that we can better outcomes for everybody. We have put body-worn cameras on all of our officers. We've put dashboard cameras on our cars so that we are better able to make sure we know exactly what's happening with every interaction the police have with the public. On transportation, we have now an entirely free fare, zero fare policy on ride-on buses. So you can now ride on extra, ride on flex, the flash buses that run from Burtonsville to Silver Spring, all zero fare right now. We are trying to expand the flash bus rapid transit system. Right now it's just servicing Route 29 on dedicated lanes from Burtonsville to White Oak, and then in traffic from White Oak to Silver Spring, trying to figure out ways to expand that, bring it to, we're well along in the design of the route along Veers Mill Road, which would connect the Wheaton Metro Station to the Rockville Metro Station and then up to the Montgomery College campus in Rockville, as well as 355 from Montgomery College Germantown to Montgomery College Rockville, down the pike, hopefully all the way to Bethesda and Friendship Heights, but at least to Grosvenor and the Beltway. So a way to make sure there's quick, rapid transit to get around the county and to spur continued growth in the county. I am so sorry that when I started, I forgot to say, when I did all the introductions, that I am actually an East County native. When my parents moved here in 1968, we were the third family to move in the brand new Burnt Mills townhouses. So I'm going to show my age. Some of you know the Enclave. I still call it El Dorado Plaza, right? Because that's how long I've been here. When McDonald's was a Junior Hot Shops Junior, I think. So I've spent my life along the East County corridor. I went to Burnt Mills Elementary. I went to Stonegate Elementary. I went to White Oak, again showing my age, junior high school. And then they sent me to a Catholic school. So I'm a graduate of the most infamous Catholic school in our county, Georgetown Prep. So I say that because I went to college, I went to high school with two members of the Supreme Court now. Hard to believe. So we are continuing through the Ride On Reimagine plan to redo our lines in the county to better service the entire county and provide expanded transit services. We're working with WMATA to change their bus service. Everyone may have noticed that WMATA changed all their bus numbers, at least to make it so if it's an M, if the route has an M on it, you know it's a Montgomery County route. Just like if it has a P on it, it's a Prince George's route. So, and probably the county executive's most passionate priority, the Montgomery County Public Schools. You may know Mark spent many years as a third grade math teacher. So he is committed personally, professionally to our school system. As you can see, one of the things he's been trying to do is at least just get us back to where we were on spending per pupil adjusted for inflation. So we hit a peak here right at the beginning of the Great Recession. We put in money, and you can see after the cutbacks that had to occur during the Great Recession, we lost spending power. Actually, it went down in absolute dollar terms for a while. He finally brought it back up when he became county executive to above the old route, the old amount, and has kept the progress going to where we are almost at the same amount of money on a per pupil basis when adjusted for inflation. That has meant a lot of additional resources, and every year hitting a historic level of funding. I know my hair has turned almost white in trying to balance the budget. Jenny Bryant, I don't know how she's managed to not keep gray hair, but to keep gray hair away from all these fights, but we have continued to make sure MCPS gets the most amount of money. So we always try to remind people that the school board is an independently elected body, separate elected officials. They get to make their own budget decision. The superintendent will propose a budget to them. They adopt the budget, send it over to us. The county executive recommends how much money the school system gets, but not how it is spent. Then the county council approves recommended funding for the schools. And then the school board can ask the state for more funding. They are, again, a separate entity that has a degree of control over the money we give them and how it is spent. We go through similar processes with Montgomery College, the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, and WSSC Water. Interestingly, they all exist in state law, created in state law, so we have different rules to follow both locally and from the state when it comes to the school system, the college, park and planning, and WSSC. So a little bit about where we are as we move into the next fiscal year. So this is how much we spend of our own revenues. So this general fund revenues mean these are our tax dollars. So this is just us, not state aid, not federal funds or any other sources. This is just how much money is that we control in our own tax dollars. As you can see, the lion's share goes to the Montgomery County Public Schools and Montgomery College. 54% of the $4.5 billion Montgomery County General Fund budget goes to MCPS and Montgomery College. We are under a state law called maintenance of effort, that we must maintain our effort. So what that requires is if we provide, I'm going to pick a number, $22,000 per student this year, we have to provide $22,000 per student next year. So if enrollment goes up, you have to increase the budget. If enrollment goes down, you have flexibility if you want it, but through much of the last 30 years, because of continuing growing enrollment, we've had to just put in tens of millions of dollars more just to meet that basic minimum maintenance of effort law. So now over the last several years, because growth in enrollment has plateaued, we are able to catch up. As you notice in that last chart, where over the last several years the line has been picking up, because since the number of students has been growing, the more money we're going is actually growing the amount per pupil as opposed to keeping it at the same level. Our other major expenditures: public safety, police, fire, corrections, debt service, the money I told you we borrow money to build buildings, just like your mortgage payment. You are obligated to pay that money. So that's really the first dollar has to go out to pay back your bondholders. So our pension and health care obligations to retirees, cash that we put into the capital budget, that means the rest of the budget, which is bus drivers and transportation, our court system, our amazing library system, parks, recreation, much of what James is doing with the Department of Health and Human Services is paid for out of the remaining 13% of the budget. So that's always when you say, like, oh, Mark Edwards, you've got $4.5 billion to decide. Well, if you think about it, this is obligated by state law. This is a moral obligation. We all know if we don't pay our mortgage, there is a cost of it. So really, when you get down to it, you have very little control, and arguably public safety, which is overwhelmingly personnel, the firefighters, the police officers, the correctional officers, that it's really the rest of the budget is what the county executive and the county council has to wrestle over every year. Now, where does the money come from? It comes from income taxes and property taxes. In Maryland, it's important to know, local governments are funded almost entirely by who lives here. Sales tax in Maryland entirely goes to the state. Corporate taxes entirely go to the state. Really, our taxes, income tax, who lives here? Property tax overwhelmingly paid by people who live here. So 80% of our property taxes come from residents. It is really just, when you look at the business, the commercial side of the property tax, only 7% are offices. So we are dependent upon who lives here. That is very different, and you'll see a slide a little bit later that I'll come back to about the District of Columbia and Northern Virginia, which is why sometimes when people are talking about, whoa, Fairfax is doing this, Arlington is doing this, DC is doing this, why aren't you taking action? We are in a very different situation. And the good news is for us in the short term, our revenues continue to hold up. Yes, there's great concern over the federal government and uncertainty for the federal government. We have no idea what is about to happen in 48 hours with a shutdown of the federal government, with whatever budget they do end up passing and how that impacts us. We recognize that there are going to be issues around what that means to us. But so far, our income taxes have held up. The reality is, we are fortunate to have some of the wealthiest people in the world live in Montgomery County. we have a lot of people whose income is not derived from the federal government. So as a result, we continue to do well with our income taxes. It's sometimes very surprising to see the receipts that are coming in right now with the headlines that are coming out. Sadly, we experienced the same thing with around maybe a similar situation in COVID. We saw a lot of job losses, but those job losses were all at the lower end of the economy where people have very little tax burden because of the progressive structure of Maryland taxes. And so because we don't get the sales tax, we just get income tax, property tax, our revenues held up during COVID. Our revenues could very well hold up through the next few years. And not to forget that while the Trump big bill did a lot of damage to social programs, did a lot of damage to civilian agencies, it pumped in tens of billions of dollars into defense and security. And while the Washington region does well with the life sciences, the Washington region also does well with the death sciences. And as a result, that money will continue to flow through entities like Lockheed Martin, the single largest international business based in Montgomery County. So there are reasons to see that there's plenty of stimulus flowing into the regional economy. At the same time, other things that we might better like money to go into is not happening. But we are going to have more people who need help. Inflation is hitting the budget. Certainly, we employ a lot of people in schools and a variety of jobs. Health insurance costs go up. That means our costs as an employer go up. The uncertain local job market. More and more people are looking for jobs, and that is creating a degree of instability. And of course, and you may have seen plenty of news lately about the K-shaped economy, where people in the top 20% are earning more than ever and spending more than ever, and they are keeping the entire national economy afloat. And we just have a large number of people in that category that are continuing to keep the local and regional economies going. So you probably, as soon as we put one of these slides up, it changes because we see potentially more job losses. We don't know what's about to happen with the shutdown or the new federal budget whenever that goes into place. There's a risk of federal spending that flows through the county. We are fortunate because both the federal government and the state government give out aid inverse to wealth. The wealthier you are, the less aid you get. That our exposure to direct assistance from the federal government as the size of our budget is in fact quite small. We only get about $150 million a year to support our county government from the federal government. Overwhelmingly goes to Health and Human Services to pay for us administering a variety of programs. And then about $150 million goes to the school system, overwhelmingly for Head Start, early childhood, and some poverty programs. So if you look at some of the communities around us, they have much greater exposure to direct federal assistance. So, and of course, in the long term, we have no idea as the federal government talks, as Trump talks about moving agencies around like on a chessboard, closing the Beltsville Agricultural Resource Center, selling a part of the FDA. We're constantly monitoring that. Kathleen Boucher, who has walked in, is with our county's Office of Intergovernmental Relations. She and her colleagues are following what is happening on Capitol Hill in order to keep us all well informed. Kathleen, do you want to raise your hand? There's Kathleen. Also a Silver Spring resident, right?
You got it.
So, now switching a little bit to the capital budget, over the last 15, 16 years, we have been highly disciplined about keeping a level amount of borrowing for our capital budget. But we all know that while we might still be spending the same amount of money, that doesn't buy the same amount of buildings. Everything from asphalt to steel to lumber to labor has gone up in that period of time. So you can see if you were to, the gray line is how much money we've been putting into the capital budget. Again, a very disciplined approach and to try to reduce our debt service after years of big growth. But as a result, a gap has opened up between, the blue line is what if we had put in enough to keep up with inflation, that's where we should be. So in FY26, we're putting in $280 million is the plan. But if we had just kept pace to do the same things we did with $300 million in FY09, we should be up to $560 million. So as you can see, we've not kept pace with the cost of capital inflation. So, which you can see in a few examples, how much the cost of a bus has gone up, and especially if we're trying to shift to electric buses, up from $500,000 to $1.2 million. The cost of a new school square footage has more than doubled over the last decade, from $361 to $834. A fire engine has almost doubled in cost to $1.2 million. Road paving per lane mile has not quite doubled, but has gone up. And that's why if you're still putting in the same amount of money, 10 years ago, you could have bought 2 fire engines. You can only buy 1 fire engine for the same amount of money. So that's why the county executive likes to talk about the need for tax restructuring. So the tax system for Maryland counties was designed when we were really, truly nothing but a suburban bedroom community. Again, income tax, property tax, designed on just who lives here and not the business community that has grown here. And that in order to keep pace with Northern Virginia, which has shifted their tax structure to pull in more direct revenues to the county governments through their business community and dedicated that to infrastructure, we are unable to meet Virginia's infrastructure growth. Which means, as some of you, if you drive the Beltway, you've noticed the Beltway is much wider in Virginia than it is in Maryland because they have set up a different tax structure where businesses pay more in property taxes and more of their income taxes to the counties to dedicate that to transportation. So they have created a separate transportation fund for Northern Virginia, which brings in between $300 and $500 million a year to allow them to do a lot of transportation investments that we struggle to keep pace with. In Virginia, every road is maintained by the state. I told you earlier, Montgomery County is responsible for 5,400 miles of roads. Fairfax County is responsible for 10, because the state of Virginia pays for all roads. Neighborhood roads, everything. They pay for snow plowing, they pay for fixing. All of that is a state responsibility. And then the counties have been given the authority to create more funds for capital expenditures, building the Silver Line, expanding the Beltway, doing lots of other transportation projects around Northern Virginia that we are struggling to keep pace with because the state has not given us the same responsibility. This is potentially Mark Elridge's favorite chart of all time to show where we are on property taxes compared to people around us. So, and because these charts go from 0, we try to keep it honest so that we're not making it seem even bigger. But if you look at the Maryland counties around us, Frederick County and Howard County and Prince George's County all have a much higher property tax rate of us almost $1.03, Frederick $1.11, Howard $1.33, Prince George's $1.37. So now we have a much larger property tax base than either one of those two, than the other Maryland counties, but they have a much higher rate. Fairfax County, $1.15. But here's the interesting thing. The Virginia General Assembly gave Fairfax County the ability to have an extra 12.5 cents on commercial property, office buildings, shopping centers, even rental housing, in order to generate more money for capital investments. And then Virginia, on top of that, provides their local governments, or they provide their local governments like Fairfax the chance to do special taxing districts. So Reston, which is benefiting from the Silver Line extension, is paying an additional 20 cents to go to a special taxing district to help pay for the cost of the the Silver Line, as well as the taxes on the Dulles Toll Road. So they have generated lots of additional income, which they mandate only to go to infrastructure, which is why they have charged ahead. When they put in those rules, you can see the difference in infrastructure. So, and then the District of Columbia is in a totally different situation where they have an 85-cent residential property tax, so the lowest in the region, but they charge for buildings that have a value of $10 million or more, which you can imagine many office buildings, apartment buildings in the district have a value over $10 million. They charge a property tax rate of $1.89. Now, the downside at the moment of this structure is this has meant an enormous influx of money into the District of Columbia as like, the downtown office buildings grew. The area around the Capital One Arena, where the baseball stadium, all that investment, because they have this different rates, has meant an enormous infusion of cash into the district. Now, obviously, as some of their office buildings struggle, they're struggling as a result of that structure, as they have more and more of their tax base coming from businesses as opposed to just residents. So the county executive has asked for the support of the council and the General Assembly to give us the same sorts of authority in Maryland that Virginia has in order to get more money for infrastructure, because that infrastructure leads to more growth, apartments, offices, jobs, and more tax revenue. So in fact, for the first half of the Silver Line Special Taxing District, for the first half of the Silver Line, they've already been able to reduce the taxes from 20 cents to 16 cents because of the amount of growth that has occurred. They no longer need the full 20 cents to pay for the Silver Line, at least that part of the Silver Line. So he thinks it's important for the community to have this conversation about how we are going to pay for infrastructure, because that's the only way for us to continue to compete with Northern Virginia for the types of jobs that we want to come into our communities to support the continued growth of the county. And with that, I am happy to report no one got up and walked back to the back of the room, even though Giroux has amazing food and drinks in the back of the room. But I will now happily take any questions. I don't mean to put Councilmember Mink on the spot. If she has anything she wants to add, Kristen, feel free to jump up and say, damn, Rich Madaleno is smart and said everything.
Well, that is a lot of pressure, Rich. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Mink. I am your district council member, so I represent this. Hi, how are you? I represent this district that you're in. Right now, the east side of the county, I also sit on the Education and Culture Committee, as well as the Public Safety Committee, and I am really here to hear from you all. So if there are particular pieces of what you've heard or not heard tonight that are of interest to you, concerns that have or have not been addressed, I know that the county executive certainly wants to hear that feedback, and I'm here and my team is here because we want to hear that as well. So thank you all very much for being here.
Let's give Mr. Madaleno a hand for a wonderful presentation. We have two mics, Mr. Madaleno.
Dr. Bridgers has a mic, and
yes.
I don't want to give, I don't want to, when the Reverend Dr. Command Master Sergeant.
Sergeant Major.
Command Sergeant Major, I always get it wrong. Dr. Director Bridgers grabs a mic. I never want to say.
I'm the wrong person to have.
You're just doing an Oprah today, walking around with the mic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Madaleno, if you could also allow us, since you started, we had a lady, Dr. Chapman, who is on the Montgomery College Board of Trustees. We just want to welcome you and say thanks for this facility. So if you have a question We'll start with James.
Yes, good evening. My name is Valerie Davis. I remember everything you remember about East County. I've been here with my family over 50 years. And
I spent more time at the hot shops, though, from the looks of
and
it.
there was one in Langley Park, remember?
Yes.
Yeah. I had some specific questions, but that was before you made your presentation. I'm going to share an impression because I haven't been able to form the question. There are.
Do you need me to go back to a slide?
No,
Okay.
no. Much of what you presented could read like a really great brag sheet for the county. And we've heard a lot of it, and a lot of us are here because of the things that are bragged about. But if you made that presentation from the point of view of someone who is Black, it's incredibly distressing. And frankly, that's what I expected in this meeting, to come with data about our communities. When I say Black, I mean people who are having a Black experience, all of us, right? The whole diaspora. The thing that struck me the most is, and it's a light bulb moment for me, that the wealth of a very few people is masking the destruction of Black people in this county. And that somehow that's something to brag about, but also it may just be the biggest barrier to our survival. And so if we're having a conversation about how it's not so bad because we have the most wealthy people, we'll never really have the conversation about Black people. So I don't have a question because I'm literally stunned at that framing coming to this community.
Thank you.
Okay.
I need a response. Anybody else need a response?
So I do think that when you look at the structure of the county, one of the things that I was trying to say in going through and presenting our tax base is why we are in, fortunately, a very strong position to continue the services that we have broadly for our community in some ways that communities around us do not have that same flexibility. So we continue to have a degree of self-control about our community's destiny and an ability to continue our investments in communities all over the county in order to make sure that we are continuing to keep our school system operating, our social services program operating. We are continuing to employ people and support a variety of organizations across our county. And why Montgomery County is different. I'm sorry if that's how you took my presentation, because what I was trying to say is this is why we at this dangerous time are different than some of the communities around us and are able to weather some of the things that other communities have been unable to do right now or are taking different steps right now as a result.
But our children can't read or do math. The homeless are Black. The highest suicide rate is among Black boys. Our home ownership rate isn't where it should be. Black unemployment with women and men is skyrocketing, and nobody wants to prioritize us, even in recent legislation. So when you say we, who's the we that you mean? Because it's not us. I'm done.
Next.
Good evening. Okay. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Madalino. Earlier, you mentioned the Caribbean liaison, community liaison, and African American community liaison, and African community liaison is missing. I am presenting today or introducing this to you, African Communities Coalition. I'm speaking on behalf of that community. My name is Azim Aderi, and I am honored to serve as the president of the Ethiopian Eritrean Special Needs Community. Our organization primarily serves individuals with developmental disabilities and their families by providing culturally responsive supports, trainings for parents, and training for Montgomery County Public Schools, as well as faith-based and non-faith-based organizations. Through this work, we discovered something important. While families desperately need support around disability services, Many also face broader economic and social challenges, including housing insecurity, immigration issues, and financial instability. These are issues that ESNC alone is not equipped to fully address. This realization inspired us to come together with other African-led organizations to create something bigger than any one of us, the African Communities Coalition. Our coalition includes the African Cultural and Resource Center, supporting seniors, families, youth, and healthcare access, the Ethiopian and Eritrean Special Needs Community, EESNC, assisting over 700 parents and children with special needs, the RISE Youth Development and Soccer Academy, providing mentorship and sports program for underserved youth. The Ethio-American Chamber Foundation, building capacity for small and startup businesses. Life for Africa, focusing on community outreach and engagement. Ethiopian nurses in North America, advancing health awareness and professional support. Francophone African Alliance, uniting French-speaking Africans to address shared challenges. Ethio-Eritrean Women Support Group, empowering women and families through advocacy and support. Aitu Cultural Arts Center, celebrating Ethiopian heritage through arts, history, and cultural education. Together, these organizations represent the diversity, resilience, and aspiration of African immigrant families in Montgomery County. We have committed to working in unity as one coalition to address the most pressing challenges facing our community. Montgomery County is one of the most diverse communities in the nation, and the African diaspora is a vital part of the fabric. Supporting the African Community Coalitions directly advances the 2027 budget priorities. By promoting equity and inclusion, expanding access to healthcare and wellness, strengthening youth development, supporting economic mobility through small businesses growth, and ensuring that cultural communities have the resources to thrive and contribute to the county's success. Thank you, and Anika is going to continue from here. It's a short one. Thank you.
Yeah, just for the sake of time, if we can just recap so we just don't take too much time by any one individual. We really appreciate your understanding.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Anika from the Francophone African Alliance and also from the African Community Coalition. So today we are here not only to ask for funding, but we are here to request a meeting with the county leaders to explore technical, financial, and professional support that can strengthen our coalition and expand our capacity to serve our communities. Together, we can unlock greater impact for the more than 30,000 African residents of Montgomery County. So thank you very much for that, and we request a follow-up meeting. Thank you very much.
Sure, we can pull that off between me, I'm looking back at Sean, in the Office of Community Partnerships, our representatives from the Office of Grants Management. We can definitely set that up.
Merci.
Next question over here.
Bruce, thank you.
Sir, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your presentation, all that great information. I just have two questions. One is, you highlighted the need for us to be able to increase taxes, property taxes on businesses in the county. So my question is this. One, what is the number one hindrance to that? And two, can it be done in such a way that it will not dissuade businesses from planting themselves here?
Sure. For the first question, Maryland state law requires all local governments, all county governments, I should say, not municipal governments, but county governments must have one single rate for all classes of property. So we are not allowed to set differentiated rates in Maryland. DC obviously is a unitary entity. If the federal government says they can do something, they can do it. The Virginia General Assembly has given the Northern Virginia counties the ability to set differentiated rates, which is why they have that additional rates for the different types of properties. The city of Rockville, the city of Gaithersburg could do this if they wanted. They haven't. But county governments can only have one property tax rate. So we've asked for the General Assembly to give us the authority, to give county governments the authority to set an additional rate for different classes of properties, and then it would be up to the county council to establish those rates. I'm not trying to pass the buck onto the council. The county executive, I'm sure, would be happy to propose those new rates. He's been clear about it, and then it would be the council that would have to set rates as they have to set all of our local tax rates. So that is the legal barrier to it. Now, when we look at Northern Virginia, we see that they have taken these revenues, and again, state law requires that it only be spent on infrastructure. So they can't spend it on schools, they can't spend it on social services, they can only plow it into transportation. One of the differences between Maryland and Virginia, as I mentioned about roads, all roads are state roads, the Northern Virginia counties must pay for all mass transit. So the state of Maryland pays for WMATA, the cost of Metro Rail, Metro Bus, the public subsidy. Virginia, the counties have to pay the local government subsidy without really the state. So they have a different structure, but that's allowed them to put money into more bus rapid transit, the expansion of the subway, additional subway stations, and then working with a variety of businesses in the state government to expand their road network. So one thing that you might be saying is, well, wait a second, what about the bridge? If people are interested in the American Legion Bridge, King Charles I, when the colony was created, put the Potomac entirely within Maryland. And so if you're going to build a new bridge over the Potomac, the state of Maryland has to pay for almost all of it. Or for downtown, the District of Columbia has to pay for almost all of it. So that's why Virginia is evilly, I'm trying to think, widening the Beltway to the bridge and then kind of looking over and saying, hey, what are you guys doing? Because they don't have to pay for the most expensive thing, which is building, expanding the bridge, which is why it took so long to get the Woodrow Wilson Bridge on the other side of the Beltway done, is the state of Maryland had to figure out a way to do it, but did it with the federal government. For Maryland right now, they're trying to figure out how are we going to pay for replacing the Key Bridge in Baltimore that fell down, as well as the American Legion Bridge. And that can only be done with substantial supports from the federal government. And they have so far, whether it was Donald Trump with Larry Hogan, Joe Biden with Larry Hogan, Joe Biden with Wes Moore, Donald Trump with Wes Moore, the federal government hasn't been interested for whatever reason in supporting the amount of money necessary for the American Legion Bridge. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. Can I hold it?
No, I'll hold it.
Hi, my name is Tabawal Safa. I live in Takoma Park, Maryland. Sorry I came late, but I can imagine my issue as not addressed. I am a champion of benefit cooperation, an amazing piece of legislation the state of Maryland passed in 2010. 38 states have adopted it. Basically, it's a hybrid of nonprofit, as you know, for-profit. It aspires to provide entrepreneurs, visionaries, to leverage the power of business to create wealth while addressing the greater common good. For the last 10 years, inspired by that piece of legislation, I've developed a benefit cooperation for Africa initiative to provide African entrepreneurs to create a new value chain that connect African community growers to entrepreneurs on the side to create jobs. I'm saying that because the status quo has looked at out of the opportunity. We're culturally and in so many ways are locked out. We're in the margins. Whatever we're doing is we're doing because we're tapping into our own traditional societal resources. So my point is Montgomery County is a home of benefit cooperation. What are we going to do to look into this? It's supposed to be a community public-private partnership. It is an investment, so much so. When mine has gone so deep, I'm proving the model, I'm building the infrastructure. Right now, actually, I'm in communication with the Montgomery County to create a Benefit Corporation for Africa Academy and Incubation Center. So how do you see what's happening in here? I think the county executive, I like him, but the system is disconnected on what's happening. So in these crazy times, minuscule thing is not going to address it. We have to have a bold and scale-up element. So who are we going to talk to? The Montgomery Economic Development Corporation and La La Land. We don't speak the same language. So we have to be innovative. We have to be bold. We have to go out of the box and see the best asset the county has, we the people. There's so much, especially I'm an African, I can tell you, every African member of our community, before they got here, they have so much experiences. Now they have to downgrade themselves to survive. So the people are our asset. What is the county is going to do to look into us and be a partner? Thank you.
Sure. My first 5 slides were all about this. I'm sorry you were late. No, I'm joking. So, in fact, one of the largest benefit B Corps in the country is United Therapeutics. Yes, which is a fast-growing life sciences business in downtown Silver Spring. They were amongst the first, if not the first, in the state to take on the opportunity to transform into, and I'm not using the right word, but to transform into a B corporation. So, I mean, I remember when some guy who was a state senator, Jamie Raskin, passed the legislation that created the structure for Benefit Corporation in Maryland, being the first to do it. So that's a great point. We have within the Office of the County Executive the Business Center. So we, for whatever reason, when the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation was created and part of the economic development operation of the county went to them, small business assistance, startup assistance stayed with the county, and we have consolidated that within what we call the Business Center. We have a variety of navigators. I'm sure between me, Giroux, Sean, we can make sure that you get in and meet with the team of navigators that we have to explain what you're doing and how we can work together.
If I may, it's not a small business, a big business, not a very small platform.
Yes.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you. Okay, we have this one.
All right. My name is Salam Tafara. I live in Potomac, and I have 2 businesses in the Silver Spring area. Also, I have a land, and I'm trying to build a new building downtown Silver Spring. But I have a question regarding the infrastructure and the Purple Line. So we are affected by that, and then we haven't received any funds because of the Purple Line, because we heard like many businesses got, but not most of us that we are affected. So how that determine the funds and then how they allocated for the businesses? So what is our benefit just by living in Montgomery County? So I just wanted to ask that question. Also, for the planning department, we have been waiting for the last 2 years, just to after we submitted for the plan for the new building, but we haven't received any results. We are waiting for for the planning permit, but they're not they are not giving the priority for the small businesses, and especially that we are spending money for the lands for other mortgages. So how we can get this resolved?
2 very simple questions that are so difficult to answer. The Purple Line question with the business assistance grants, well, the county has done some. Most of them have come from the state. I don't mean to pass the buck, but I don't think I can give you a very good answer about the Purple Line assistance because I know there's been a struggling to it. I don't know if Giroux is trying to say. So our regional services director for Silver Spring, Jacob Newman, If you leave your information with Drew, he'll make sure that Jacob, do you know Jacob? I don't know. So we can get you an answer through Jacob. We can get you an answer through the Business Center program, because I know they've struggled. I know that's been a consistent source of concern for the county executive. The county executive was a large skeptic of the purple line when it was on the plan, when it was just being planned, and I don't know if his skepticism has diminished. So, and the impact that it has had on the community for the length of time that it's taken to build, and certainly the cost that the state in particular is going to have to pay for a very long time on it. Your second question, planning. Montgomery County and Prince George's County are unique in the nation with the way that the state of Maryland has set up planning for us. The planning department sits within the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. So it does not respond to the county executive at all, and it has been that way since 1916. So it sits out in the separate entity, mildly under the authority of the county council, in some ways very independent. So the county executive pushes all the time to say, when we hear about concerns that people have with the planning process, and then once you get your planning approval, now you have the special opportunity to go to the Montgomery County Department of Permitting for the permit. Most other jurisdictions have found a way to put planning and permitting together so that you can move along in a rapid process. We have this overly bureaucratic process that I'm sure if he were standing before you, he would say, Kristen Meek eliminated it today. So she couldn't even do it if she wanted to do it, because the General Assembly would have to do that. Because this 1916 structure sits in state law. So it is something that he would argue, that I can see for the time I've been in the county in public policy, this system, while it has some benefits, it creates a bunch of problems and slows down the process. In some ways, I liken this where I think Montgomery County's attitude was very much like a country club. You've got to prove to us you need to join, as opposed to we are open for everybody to come in and who wants to participate and wants to build and grow, and we have to be responsive, because otherwise we are losing your investment, we are losing your momentum, and we are costing you money as you wait for a project to get built. And we've got to find a different way to move it faster, because it's not 1916, it is 2025, or that's 2026. So it's time for a different approach that we can be more responsive to the needs of the community.
Thank you, Richard. If the building issues, Department of Permitting Services, I'll connect with Jacob, and then we can connect with you to see, how best, we could assist you in there too. But we'll follow up on that. We have our next speaker here.
There's also a line behind you with Dr. Bridges.
You want to go?
So
A former department head has to go.
How
And a council
you-
member.
I'm sorry.
Yes, council member, former department head, former planning board member, former this, former that. I've been everything, right? So, which is, I'm really glad that this lady asked this question, because that's one of three things I want to raise with you. One, I wanted to make sure that the county executive is in favor of increasing funding for the Black Collective, the Montgomery County Black Collective. As you know, they run an AMBER program. It's basically a business incubator. I think they got 1.8 million before, and so I wanted to understand the commitment to that. That's number one. Number two, this lady raises a question that has been a really big problem for me for quite some time, because the planning board is like on its own. at some point, I know Mark supported an Office of People's Counsel. The county council is never going to support that and put it in the budget. We all know that. So what I don't understand is why the county executive doesn't create his own office. Because at this point, it's not only folks like this who want to figure out how they get things done in the planning process, it's people like me, people who are homeowners and who are sitting here looking at stuff and wondering, when am I going to be gentrified out of my property? And when and what can I ever do to stop them? Because I don't think I can. But if the county had actual experts who could help me and other people figure things out, which the Office of People Counsel is supposed to do, then we might have a fighting chance. That's 2. Here's 3. You mentioned this revision to the tax structure. I assume you all did that last session. And so I just want to know what happened. Has anybody said, hey, I'd love to introduce that bill and get it through for you? Because, you know, it's great to have good and revolutionary ideas. It don't mean nothing if ain't nobody gonna work on it. So those are my questions for you. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Sherry. I'll go in reverse order. Yes, that bill was put in again last year. It was Delegate Chris Fair, who represents Frederick County, because the county executive has gone to the Maryland Association of Counties, and they have made additional taxing authority for local governments, for county governments, a priority. So it's been one of their priorities for the last several years, and they have gone specifically for a sponsor outside of Montgomery County to build a statewide network of support, because clearly this is important for not just Montgomery County, because certainly all the central Maryland counties face the same sort of infrastructure challenges that we do. Happy to report that bill went through the Maryland House of Delegates. Unfortunately, it did not pass the state Senate. So I'm sure we will try again in that regard. I would point out, if anyone is interested, there is an open hearing, which you have probably been to before, the county delegation legislative priorities hearing. Every year in Annapolis, they have open mic night to come, for people to come and ask what they want out of Annapolis, to tell the delegation what they're looking for, to give suggestions. So your organization could come and present some of the same issues that you spoke about here for support for the state. Anyone could come and give that same sort of dialogue. Again, there's a time limit on it, but you could certainly have multiple people come and talk about these issues. And I'm sure the county executive would love to have someone come in and say, you've got to work on planning. And this is, so many people think that, oh, planning is a local government issue, so they don't bother going to the state legislators, who would have to take the first crack at making a change, and tell them this is the problem that we are having, and if you don't fix planning, it's only going to get worse, because the communities around us, literally everyone else in the country, can move quicker than we can because of this bifurcated system, and it's time for a change. So a different avenue to think about when you need change to occur from a different legislative body. I will take back your question about the Office of People's Counsel. I feel it's interesting in 2025 that it's quaint to say the county executive believes in the legislative process, since we see a different executive a little bit down the road not seemingly to believe in a legislative process. So he continues to propose it. I think, even though I don't know, I think Councilmember Mink has supported it. I don't know. I'm sorry that I even brought it up, but he has put it in the budget before. I'm sure he will put it in again in the hopes that it gets funded. I don't know about us creating it on our own. It's a little harder because we don't have the money per se. We'd have to identify money and move it around, and that can cause issues if it hasn't already been proposed. But that's a that,
take some of
that,
that.
that is,
You know,
that-
we'd all be okay
So-
with that, Rich, because
so-
because this is really about protecting and defending what we have, about making sure we can get some stuff. This is no joke. As we look at this county, and as you know, I went into D.C. last week. I haven't been to D.C. in like a year maybe, and it's a really good thing that I know the streets, because if I was looking for landmarks, I'd have been SOL. So I don't want Montgomery County to look like that. I don't want it to end up like that. But I think that's what the planning board wants to do, and especially downtown Silver Spring. We are fighting for our communities, for the existence of our communities.
Mhm.
And you've got to understand that. This is no, oh, gee, the developers will make it okay. They won't. They don't. And we know that. We've seen historically how they move black people out of wherever we are. And so I'm begging you to stand with us. You can do this. They created an office of procurement. I know that because I was the director. It's okay to do that. I'm asking you to do that to help us save our communities.
Sure, I will certainly take that back to the county executive, and I think he's been very vocal exactly on the points that you raised about his concerns with some of the plans that have been coming out of the planning board and the National Capital Park and Planning Commission. So your last question on the Black Collective, I will take that back to him. I can't guarantee where he is. I can't imagine he will be doing anything but continuing to provide funding. But I cannot make a commitment for him of additional funding. But I know he has been passionate and supportive of the funds that have gone in, and we'll see what transpires. But that will definitely be in the notes that go to him, is that request. Thank you. So nice seeing you.
We have one here.
Yes, we do have one here. Good evening, how
Good
are
evening.
you?
I'm good.
Appreciate your presentation and the broad view of Montgomery County. My concerns are very specific. And I'm concerned about our education system, and I'm concerned about the fact that our children of color have the lowest test scores in the county. That is unnecessary. It doesn't have to be. But the system is not working for us. We have kids who are growing up in this county who can either be a support to our tax base in the future, or they can be a drag on it. It is up to the county to determine which one that's going to be. My grandchildren are doing pretty much okay, but I'm looking at Parent View every day. I'm emailing their teachers every day. They don't respond. I have a problem with that. I have lived and worked in this county and paid taxes for 40 years. I retired from HOC after 30 years, and I can't get a response from a teacher. My second concern, which is equally important, is what's coming from the federal government. They are cutting funds for HBCUs. They are cutting funds for scholarship money, for grants, for children to be able to go to school. Montgomery County can help with that. We have a dual, what do you call it? Is it a
Dual enrollment.
We have a dual enrollment program where our kids can get 2 free years of college. If the school system begins to prepare them for that from the beginning. So I would like to see very much something be done on that level. I think you're seeing a community at this point that's waking up. Several years ago, I did listening sessions. I got 5 people. This year, I have over 100 people who want to be heard. And this, for the communities of color, is going to be a major issue.
So I know, those issues are, it's easy for me to give lip service to them because it is important, right? But I don't know if we have a representative from the Board of Education. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, God, I looked at the Board of Elections, not the Board of Education. Is there someone from the Board of Education of the public school system here? Well, Chris, but I really, I mean, the county executive is very concerned about those issues, has been, is thrilled with the support of Montgomery College, bringing yes.
And he is very concerned about that issue, and as a former teacher, he understands the issue.
Mm-hmm.
He's not my focus.
Mm-hmm.
My focus is the systemic issues that have been ongoing for who knows how long. Yeah, well, yeah, and before that. But it's the need to take a look at a systemic problem
Mm-hmm.
that has shut our children out.
Sure, I will. We will make sure to ask the superintendent about that. I know, again, I'm not trying to pass things off on Councilmember Mink, but she is on the Education Committee. I got that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, sorry, she is on the Education Committee, so, I think that is something I'm sure the county executive would like to work more on, and we'll we have regular meetings with the superintendent, the board president, some of the senior leadership, and we'll talk about that. That is an issue that he raises all the time. He has found it unacceptable and has been, I think, the greatest disappointment to him over the last 50 years of the persistent gap and outcomes in the school system.
Just tell them no studies. And bring Black people into those meetings.
Yeah.
Don't just talk about us.
Yeah.
Bring us into those meetings. We have the expertise.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Mr. Madaleno, this was scheduled to end at 8:30. It's about 8:28. Do you wish
I'm fine.
to continue?
I'm fine.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Lori Williams. I'm with the Caribbean American Advisory Group for the county. I wanted to first thank you for the presentation. I also want to mention that the Caribbean American Advisory Group, the African Advisory Group, the African American Advisory Group are coming together to formally present some recommendations for the county executive. So I'll be brief with just a couple of points that we will formally make in the near future. One of our big concerns is we have some wonderful community liaisons working with us, and we would love to see their positions be full-time for the scope of the work that needs to be done in our separate communities. So I could speak for the Caribbean American community. The need is great. There's a lot of fear in our community, and I could say the fear is not only newly arrived, immigrants in the county, but people who've been in the county for a long time, established their families here and so forth. There's fears and concerns. So we will ask for that consideration for our community liaisons to be full-time. Another point for the Caribbean American community, as well as our communities as a whole, special outreach for our aging population. Sometimes they do not know of all the services, or are not aware, or don't have access to be able to get to the services that are available to them. So resources for that. We continue to request resources for safe and affordable housing for our youth, for our, again, our aging community, our community as a whole, and just continued resources to ensure that, as was mentioned before, that, education, youth opportunities, safe communities, all of this is available to all of our constituents in our communities. So thank you for your time, and we will be continuing the conversation, we hope, with the county executive.
Well, and certainly with Dr. Bridgers right there, the Division of Aging and Disability Services, several of you have brought that issue up, and certainly Dr. Patrice McGee, who is the division chief, we could definitely set up some conversation to make sure we talk through issues if we are presenting information where in places and style it is not helpful. Certainly would love to work on all of that. I know you work with Rodrigo all the time, and the county executive I know has thought long and hard about the full-time, part-time status for the community liaisons. So we'll definitely look into all of that for moving forward. I don't know if you noticed, but Councilmember Mink was nodding very strongly when you said the full-time committee. I think on that one, I'm safe to say she is, yes, do it yesterday, so.
Okay, we have next here.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm from the African Communities Coalition, and we'll follow up the meeting. But here to address and give more emphasis on the education thing, because it's a big concern for the immigrant communities. And there is a disconnect totally between the school and especially the parents. One of the issues is just, there is a language barrier as well as understanding the school system to provide the support that our kids are in need of. And to bridge the gap, I know there is a language access, something like that, especially sending messages from the school system to the parents in Amharic, but it is terrible, 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 to be honest. I have been working on so many times with this message. I try to address the school board and different departments, like, in order to understand the Amharic that the school is sending, I have to translate it into English. Then I will understand that what they are trying to say. Let alone like a person who do not understand English, if you send the Amharic, they are confused, like what are they talking about, like something like that. So this kind of disconnect, it's serious, to be honest, because the parents, most of them, if you ask like the immigrants why you are coming to the United States, mostly safety, and then because they wish a better opportunity education for their kids, and their kids are not receiving that. And due to that, drug and substance abuse among the immigrant and color communities is maximizing. Mental health is an issue. So many problems among.
What was that? Mental health. Sorry.
Yeah. So in order to address that, this is a budget hearing, I know. We need to have, problem hearing sessions. What are we facing? How we are feeling? And even there are maybe alternative solutions. As my brother Tababu mentioned, there are so many experts coming from Africa, educated, have so many years of experience in different sectors and aspects. We may have a solution because we understand the community very well than yours. So that I don't know how we can figure it out, but we need this kind of conversations.
All right, thank you. I know we talk all the time. I kept looking back at Sean Ellis, again, the director of the Office of Community Partnerships, about, I know you were talking about the school system, but the challenges of communicating in other languages in a way that's coherent to the recipient. And that's a very interesting point. I will definitely bring that up with the school system. Sometimes I feel like, clearly with all of the new tools that we have, if the starting document is not properly crafted in English, it's hard to get it to understand. I mean, I know as an English speaker, native English speaker, plenty of communication I received from the school system that I struggled to sometimes understand what they were trying to tell me as a parent. So the plain English that goes out, as well as then whatever we're translating into other languages. So that's valuable feedback, I know, for us to work with them to see if we can do better. And I don't know if you receive communications. I'm not asking to put you on the spot, but if we do a better job with Amharic than the school system does, or if that's just a fundamental problem that we need to think about how we are working, either translations in general or we're doing something wrong with Amharic that we've got to try to address.
Okay, thanks for this presentation. And we are new immigrations, but we have been in the United States for 20 years and also working in the public school system and for long times. So that's why we really appreciate for the school And when we live in other countries, we always think about the Americans' education is very well because American is the world leader, something like that. So that's why we leave our country to this country for advanced study, and so that's why this is. So most of us and work in the school and quickly back to our country to cultivate what we learned. But we choose to stay here and to work with the United States and to be, so that's why I study in the education. So we also think about the Africans and the academic is lower for some people. But I think that we have the first president of African American President Obama or something like that, and they are very outstanding person. And at the education board, we also choose and keep the spot for the African and American peoples to be a board member, education board member. So I think that we care the problem about the Africans, the lower academic. But I think it's the problems from the problem, and I think why we choose the person be a education board member, and so that's why I think they really know the problem where it is. But that's such a long time, just like that. If some patient have a cancer, there is not just one day make her or he be a cancer patient. They should have many problems that cause many bad happy, something like that. They did not care about eating or exercise or anything else. Or they are so sad that they're born in the environment have many harmful element. So cause the child when they are since the baby and have a lot of the So the point is that we really appreciate it, but for the just like the superintendents, Montgomery counties, the safety is the first place. Yeah. So we went to the school. We be a teacher. We don't do the segregation. So that's why we education in the United States, and we never imagine what's going on. But really in the life, I think that some child maybe they betray something like that. So they say they don't know the culture. Yep. So just like they have 80 religions, many religions on the boulevard. Yeah, you know that. But if any religions to do that, just let that against the person who is not belong to my religion, I can kill them. That is so horrible, isn't it? Because American is very open. They accept many countries. So
I would point out because
I'm worried about the children's safety.
Okay. I know children's safety is a top priority for the school system, for the community. I would point out, you brought up the Board of Education. 4 of the 7 general elected seats are up next year in the election. I know already 2 of the board members have decided not to seek re-election. They're running for something else. So there are an opportunity for people who are interested in running for the Board of Education. All 4 seats are available, and so far 2 are definitely vacant. So I know there are different people that have their
this one here first.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we'll get this one here.
Again, that is set in state law. Yes.
Hello, my name is Marasebi. I live in East County. I have 2 children. They're 9 and 11. So my concern about East County, the school system, I think I've come to the point where I understand how the budget is allocated, but I'm very concerned about how we allocate for school system in East County. Because our talented students are been sent to a different side of the county. So with what's happening now, I don't feel comfortable sending my child to the other side, and instead of I want them to be here. So can we work on bringing those services back to the East County, one. Second, I do agree with someone who said about the teachers, the way how they assess students. I don't know, probably have a background of education. The teachers, they probably need some professional development on assessing students, because I check my kids every day on their parent view, and when I follow up, sometimes the answer that I get, oh, I'll give another assignment. I wanted to know, is it the students' lack of understanding the topic? I don't want the grades. I want to make sure they understand the concept. So when you reach out, it's not to change grades, but we want them to be assessed properly because we want them to be competitive. So I feel like when you're immigrant, where you have accent, sometimes teachers don't take you serious. Third, with what Antenna said, I speak Amharic, so the language is something that it needs to be worked on because it's misleading a lot of community, and that's why people are moving from the Montgomery County, especially this area, is because the way how we communicate is not clear. And for me, communication is safety. Someone doesn't have to come to attack me. The communication, if I don't understand, I'm lost. So I will look for places where it gives me a better understanding. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll definitely follow up on the Amharic issue. The parent view issue is very interesting, and definitely talk to the school system about that. The school system is looking at, and I believe, in some ways, in any day, you can only work on so many things that are in your purview and not. So I know the school system is considering a new model to regionalization of services, and I don't know if that would get at some of those issues. I know, I don't mean to keep throwing things at Councilmember Mink, but her committee is going to be having a hearing on this in just a few weeks to understand more of that issue, and that might very well come up in part of what the school system wants and what she's probably advocating for.
Really quickly, I texted the superintendent, Thomas Taylor, about the Amharic translations, and he responded and is going to look into it. You have my card. Make sure you know how to reach me, but I'll make sure you have my card too. So if we don't see a change in that, then please let me know. It should be that it's fun. I think you said it's so well. Communication is safety, really fundamental. So we want to make sure that is right. And translations should always be proofread by a native speaker. So there's no reason for that. And to the point that was made earlier, we have the resources in our community to get that done, right? And then to the point about the programs being available and the equity of not having programs available on our side of the county, Rich is right. That is part of a study that's being undergone by MCPS right now, is to establish that equity so that we have programs that are accessible in all parts of the county. And so obviously, it's certainly, in theory, in the way it's laid out, it will be a tremendous benefit to East County because there's a lot of things that are in other parts of the county that are not here. But we're also going to want to keep, as Rich noted, very close eyes on that to make sure that it's not one of those good ideas that then goes awry and we don't actually get the things that we've been demanding. So we will be having a committee session on that soon.
Thank you. I know I'm happy to stay and answer questions. We've got great people still sitting at the tables waiting to also interact with any of you. So I want to be respectful of their time that they've been sitting here waiting to talk to people, but also respectful of anyone who wants to ask a question. So if you don't mind noise as people move around, we'll keep going.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Coach Fofo, and I live here in the East County. My concern is the youth of East County. Our kids are safe when they're in the school, and after school, they become a problem. So we need more funding to introduce to the after-school program, and also let them occupy, because a lot being direct to the social media, TikTok, and do not pay attention. So we need money, we need funding to introduce more after-school program for the kids in here, especially on the immigrant kid in the East County here. That's my question.
Thank you. We'll definitely take that into consideration and work with, we've got several people here, especially the library director. Libraries does a lot of programming for children after school. So it's not, Darcel is in the back. Yes. To talk about that. And then, of course, Dr. Bridgers through HHS does a variety of programs through children, youth, and families where we're supporting people and grants out to community groups. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can participate and we can support. But whether it's libraries, recreation, HHS, or the public school system, sometimes it's figuring out, we have so many different pots of money, so many people trying to do things, how do we make sure we're doing it efficiently and effectively and hitting all of the parts of the county, as opposed to having it scattered in a way where we're not spending money as efficiently and targeted as we could and should be. James, you said there was one more question?
Yes, there's a question and a statement.
Yes. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yes, you're talking about education. Yes, the system is broken in general. And the fault is both the parents as well as the school system itself. Parents, you need to work closely with the teachers. And you also need to monitor your kids in the classroom. Maybe when the kids are at home, they behave differently. But when they're at school, 80% of the time is classroom management, trying to control those kids. And I would advise that parents, you need to pay attention to your kids. You need to watch them closely. Because most of the time, the parents don't. They just come, drop off the kids, and zoom off. So I know the system is already, it's broken, and the way, and also those who have been selected to teach, some of them are not even qualified, But you need, as a parent, you need to support your child. You need to pay attention. You need to help your child to move forward. If you're depending on the system itself, it's broken. So I would advise it's not only for immigrant kids or what, for everybody, for everyone who has a kid in school. You need to work with your kids if you want your kids to progress.
So, can I also say something? I'm sorry. So, interestingly, and this goes back to the very first question, and I think there are a lot of parents in this room who feel they're working very hard with their children, trying to support their children, and work with the school system to figure out ways to support their children, and at the same time have high expectations for how children are to behave and work in the school system. Interestingly, I started the Montgomery County Public School System in 1970, the very tail end of the baby boom. When I started the public schools in this county, the school system was 95% white, and the property tax rate was $1.50. Since 1970, the school system has grown vastly more diverse, and our property tax is $1.02. So we have made decisions about resources. We're not the only community that has experienced this, as funding from the 1970s on has gone down for so many public services. It is remarkable the amount of support that we continue to give and support the school system, but there's been a fundamental change in our approach to taxation throughout the nation, including here.
Our last question and or comment.
Is it about the Board of Elections? The Board of Elections?
No, unfortunately, I am not part of the Board of Education, though I do serve, and that's actually exactly what I'm here for. So a bit on my background for everyone who's still in this room and still paying attention to this conversation. My name is Kina Anium, and I serve as the chair to the African Affairs Advisory Group, and that is my volunteer position. As a paid position with the county, I serve as a board member to the Montgomery County Board of Elections. And in my other very paid position, for now, I serve as a community engagement manager to a national literacy nonprofit that services Black and brown children who are trying to help make sure they can read at grade level by 4th grade, by servicing them between kindergarten and 4th grade. So I say this because my background and experience is varied, and so my concern that I bring to you today is in regards to needs assessments. For many of you, you might have understood the concept of a bud, a rose, and a thorn. I've seen the county executive and, by the way, the county council put a lot of efforts towards health and human services, making sure things like mental health services are varied and supportive of our community, the Black diaspora as a whole. However, we need a needs assessment, and it's one that should be brought to the county executive or one that starts with his office, quite frankly. We don't have one. Right now, there is not an African liaison. But more importantly, someone has just shared recently, one of our chairs, that we don't have a full-time liaison. We are about 30%, it's actually a little over 35% of this county, and yet we don't have a full-time person, which means that person cannot actually assess the needs and attend to the needs that our council members and our county executive cannot get to. And quite frankly, in the absence of an African liaison, the other liaisons who've been fantastic have had to step up and do things that they don't have time for their own diaspora. So to that point, when are we going to have the opportunity to have a paid-for needs assessment that meets the metrics that we need to come and be the true advocates we need to be of our community, so that people who are trying to create coalitions can pull from the data as opposed to trying to find free time they don't otherwise have. As I mentioned with my day job, I work with an organization that partners with AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps has been funded or defunded recently. So we used to be able to serve 18 different schools. We're now serving 5. That means there's many more children who still need services who aren't getting them. I'm seeing that with my day job. I'm now seeing that basically as a volunteer of an organization or entity of the county executive. I can't do that if I'm still trying to service the needs of parents in Baltimore City and DC, which is another place I also service. So how can we help you ensure that we can get the advocacy for these needs assessments and for a full-time liaison to properly service our community?
Rich, I'll take that question.
Okay.
So thank you for that question. We need to talk. We do have a community health needs assessment that is generated through our minority health improvement programs. But you know what the challenge is for us to make that needs assessment more robust? We don't have people to respond to not only the quantitative piece, the survey, or even come out and participate in the qualitative piece. We don't even have people coming out in the community. We talk about community level engagement and capacity building assistance. We have a low response rate from individuals who come out to talk about educational pieces. So there are multiple metrics, and we vet them in the community. We ask folks, we invite folks, we solicit folks to come out and help inform the survey so that we can develop the metrics, so that we can have data that targets or that's more specific to data-driven vulnerabilities. We talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, but how inclusive can we be if we come to forums such as this, but we have minimal participation? Now, I'm not generalizing to this group, but we need more participation to maximize and leverage the data that we use to help form our budget, to help respond to the community level needs, to help the CAO and the county executive prioritize and assess and mitigate those risks where we focus on where those vulnerabilities lie. So I'll give you my card. We can have a follow-up conversation, and I'm glad the conversation ended with me. Thank you, Rich.
So I think we will have a liaison on board soon, and we will continue the conversation about. I heard loud and clear about the desire for full-time liaisons and not just part-time liaisons. Did you hear that, Sean? So I'm sorry.
Let's give Ms. Marilena a big hand.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you all very much for coming out.